A recent article excerpt from Reuters reads as follows. In June 2024, the Oklahoma Supreme Court ruled that the state's approval of St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School, a proposed publicly funded Catholic charter school, was unconstitutional. The court determined that the charter schools are public institutions and must remain non-sectarian, thereby prohibiting the use of public funds for religious instruction. This decision has been appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, which heard oral arguments in April of 2025. A ruling is expected by the end of June. If you want to read more on that, the article is going to be posted in our show notes, so you can read all about it. To have a better understanding of what's going on here, I want to explain what a charter is. I'm going to try to do that succinctly because they're different than a private school and they're different than a public school. So they're like a private school in the sense that they're independently operated, but they're like a public school in the sense that they're federally funded. So tax dollars go towards funding a charter school, but they're privately operated. They became popular in the 90s because public school institutions were struggling. The government wanted to give people more opportunities. They wanted to have more accountability. So they are tested on the success of a charter school. There are stricter testing to show the success of a charter school. So they operate under performance contracts and they allow schools to break free from universal policies. So if you're in a public school, you have to meet at a certain time every day. Like you have to show up at the school, leave the school at a certain time every day. You do lunch the same way. It's robotic. You do everything the exact same way. These policies allow for different hiring methods, for different curriculum, different schedules, all sorts of stuff. So what the argument is here is this Catholic school wants to be a federally funded charter school. The government doesn't think they should be able to do that because they want separation of religion being funded by tax dollars. Do you want to give your opinion on that first, or do you want me to read the arguments that have been made for and against so far?
I'll give my opinion yet, but this sounds very, very similar to Liberty. Now, it's a university. It's not a public K through 12 school, but one of the big issues with Liberty when Donald Trump came and spoke at Convocation was that Liberty accepts significant volume of federal funds, and so they're not supposed to have a political leaning. There's a much more technical way to describe all of that. But there was a big argument that they should lose their nonprofit status because they're able to financially be benefited by the nonprofit status. So this actually seems very similar to that. I actually don't know how Liberty gets away with being who they are and having nonprofit status. So it's not, I guess that would be, nonprofit isn't necessarily faith related, but it's just saying that they're not supposed to have a political leaning. So it reminds me of that scenario that Liberty went through after Trump came to Convocation.
The thing that's wild about this is you could literally see Christian funded schools through the government, but you could also then after see Muslim funded schools by the government and Buddhist funded schools by the government. So it opens up a whole can of worms. The arguments for, in this case so far, have been that charter schools typically have a focus. So college prep, STEM, arts, they can have many different specific focuses on why they're a charter school. The proponents for the Catholic charter school argued that to eliminate faith from one of those focuses is to be discriminatory of the free exercise of religion. So that was their primary argument. Another argument was that all charter schools are operated as private entities, so they can't exclude anyone. So if this school is a charter school, they can't say you can't come here because you're whatever, atheist, different religion, different set, or I mean, like both sexes can obviously come there, but because of preferences, you can't be excluded. So this charter school will be open to everyone. Therefore, it meets that qualification. Catholics make up a portion of the public. This is another argument. So there are over 1 billion Catholics in the world right now. Their tax dollars are going towards funding secular charter schools. So that's something that they would disagree with, that are teaching things they disagree with. So their argument is if their tax dollars are going towards funding that, because they make up such a significant part of the population, it should be okay that other people's tax dollars go towards funding this Catholic charter school because it doesn't provide less options, it provides more. Arguments against are that the two obvious arguments you're going to hear are that people of other faiths' tax dollars should not go towards funding a Catholic school. And if they do this for Catholics, they're going to have to do it for Muslims, Buddhists, atheists, all the like. And then our tax dollars are all going to be going towards funding those different things. Opinion.
Yeah, so I don't have a super strong opinion on it. Because I always go back to the individual basis. Like, yeah, it's great that there's more opportunities available. I'd imagine charter schools are more expensive. So how?
They're free tuition.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's because they're government funded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you're going to have organizations of whatever faith that are willing to build schools and deal with the federal garbage that comes with being federally funded, that's a good thing generally. I think if you don't want your kids being exposed to different religions or different ideologies, you don't put your kids in those schools. So I'm all for more options as long as it's not limiting freedom. So I guess just my general opinion, I'd be fine with it. But I do think if I was a Catholic, my concern here would be how much is the state going to regulate or the government going to regulate our curriculums, what we teach, how close do we get here to combining federal government and religion? Like there's lots of arguments about the separation of church and state and exactly what that was and why it existed. But so it's not to say there wasn't a good essence to the idea.
Yeah, I want to keep the state out of the church. That's the primary thing. And I don't know. I guess you'd have to look at, we're in a place where there aren't charter schools because it's not super populated. So you'd have to look at the other charter schools, like how involved is the government there? And are they not involved because they're secular? Like, would they have more incentive to be involved because this would be a Catholic school? I don't know. I would prefer them to not be government funded. And I think there's pros and cons. It would be sweet, in my opinion, but I think it's idealistic. I don't think it's realistic for us to just have a Christian nation. I think it's so depraved. I think that if you call it a Christian nation, there's going to be so much depravity involved within that all it does is distorts what is truly Christian. And so I like the idea of saying, okay, our government's going to get behind these Christian institutions, but I think that just opens up more of a door for manipulation. And I think we should fund what we believe and care about. I think the churches should fund the schools. Church should fund a Christian school if it really cares and believes in the Christian school. I really just don't want to see government twist their secular influence into these schools. And I also do not want my tax dollars going towards funding a Buddhist school or a Muslim school, which I think is the natural end to this whole debate. Is as soon as you get one Catholic school funded, then you're going to get a Protestant one, which sweet, but then you're going to get a Buddhist one. Then you're going to get a Muslim one. Then you're going to get people pushing, and then all of our tax dollars are going to be going towards these other religions being taught, when I would much more prefer our churches to back what they think is important and to fund those schools.
Yeah, I gotta agree with all that. I just try to find a way to not pay tax dollars.
Yeah, I don't want to pay tax. And that's what I'm thinking.
That's my life goal.
I hear this, and then my mind goes to Protestants next. Then it's Buddhist, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of schools. Government's going to start funding. Taxes are going to go up.
Well, it's kind of already there. Universities, this is just talking about doing it at K through 12, like the nonprofit status for liberty. That's already a basically government-funded, large portion of the university, government-funded institution that also is evangelical and Christian. So I don't know that this is really the cusp of breaking it in general. It's just breaking it for the public school years, which is less exclusive. More students will attend. The volume is greater. Therefore, the effect of the schools will be greater.
And this is like complete government funding. Liberty is going to receive tuition from students to get funded as well. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize they were government funded. My school is not.
So that means like they can use the Pell Grant and some other stuff that a lot of students, me for example, actually can use to attend school. So like I think my tuition there probably was would have been like somewhere between 10 and 15K a year, and I paid almost nothing. And I also got military and EMS discounts, but I paid almost nothing because the government paid most of my way because of our family's economic status growing up. So yeah, the government funds a lot of students. I don't know if the nonprofit status is what makes them eligible to use the Pell Grant, for example. There's a lot of details here I don't know. But yeah, you already have the government kind of contributing a lot of money to higher education, but not public schools. So now we're talking about a much bigger size of student body in the public school world.
The Southern Baptist Convention is a really good model of what I believe in, because that's what all 6 Southern Baptist seminaries are funded on. Is we give to the cooperative program and to the Southern Baptist Convention. Those schools are funded based on our giving, and because we care about it. And so if they start to do things that we don't believe are biblical, we stop giving, and they're not funded. And so that's what part of the conservative resurgence. There's a whole podcast episode on Al Mohler talking about this, who's the president of Southern, but he talks about that. He's like, people are going to stop giving if they don't care about it. And if they do, they're going to give. And so I think that is what ends up producing biblically faithful schools. They're not manipulated as much, and you care about it, so you give to it.